Good morning, my dear class 8 English version students. In the previous class, we have also explained the interesting topics. In the interesting topics, we also explained in the previous class basically central nervous system. Is it not interesting? Maybe it's also very interesting and the meaningful structure. Here's the important topics. We also in the previous class explained the central nervous system. Here's the cerebrum, cerebellum, and also the medulla oblongata, etc., etc. Now, today I have just selected our next topics. In the next topics is the another name is the spinal cord, and the lesson is the 8 to 10. Here's the spinal cord. It's also very important topics for your exam. Here's the spinal cord. Basically, I have also draw a figure in the human body. In the human body, actually I am not an expert, but I have also tried. The human body first structure is the brain. It's also the central nervous system, and another structure is the spinal cord. Here's today I have just select, and third is the nerve, and the nerve at the spinal cord is also state the vertebral column. So please everyone open the books and the spinal cord, lesson 8 to 10. Here's the spinal cord. The spinal cord is protected by vertebral column. In spinal cord, the positions of gray matter and white matter. My dear students, in the previous class, in the central nervous system, we have also explained where's the white matter and where's the gray matter. But it's also the reverse. Here's the central nervous system and also the spinal cord. The spinal cord is the positions of gray matter and the white matter are reversed, i.e. gray matter inside and white matter outside. But in the central nervous system, here's the gray matter is the outside and the white matter is the inside. It's also the very important difference. Here, a large number of nerve fibers, basically sensory and the motor, ascend or descend along the white matter of the spinal cord. Here's the ascend or descend, basically the another two nerve. Here's the two nerve is the one nerve is the sensory nerve. Please everyone see the figure. Here's the figure is the 5.6, the spinal cord, and also the reflex action of the spinal cord. Here's the two nerve system. First nerve is the sensory nerve and second nerve is the motor nerve. So the topics is the reflex action. What's the meaning of the reflex action? What will you do when a mosquito sits on your hand? You must try to kill the mosquito. How do you feel that the mosquito is on your hand? You feel mosquito bite, so you do so. You feel mosquito bite through nerve impulse, and your response to the stimulus is also due to the nerve impulse. Another topic is the nerve impulse. The mirror reflex. When the mirror reflects the light instantly, when it receives light, reflex action is also like that. Here's the basically two structure and also the two explain. First structure is the mosquito and second is the mirror. Again, reflex action is the consequence of immediate action of nerve impulse. Please everyone underline the nerve impulse. What is the nerve impulse? Information is the form of electrical impulse. The nerve impulse, the another name is the electrical impulses, flows through the nerve cell is called the nerve impulse. When a mosquito sits on your hand, we drive it away, or when a pin pricks our hand or feet, we withdraw our hand or feet immediately. Is it not? Yes. Everyone, it's also happened that they also the hand we drive it away, or when a pin pricks our hand or feet, we withdraw our hand or feet immediately. How it happens? The presence of a mosquito on the hand stimulates a sense organ. The sensation travels from the sense organ to the spinal cord through sensory nerve fibers. In response, the central nervous system sends back a message through motor nerve fibers to the muscle of hand, and as a result, we drive away or kill the mosquito. It's also another information about the reflex action. Now, reflex action occurs automatically, spontaneously without conscious thought. It may be defined as the inborn automatic actions of the body, which are done without the involvement of thinking or brain. Another reflex action, I will also explain the sudden action. That means the sudden action, what's the meaning of the sudden action? Without conscious thought, and it also happens again. Thus, these actions are immediate and spontaneous and may be described as automatic response to stimuli. Reflex actions are usually conveyed through spinal cord by a path called a reflex arc. A reflex arc has the following constituents. First, receptor. My dear students, please everyone see the boards. The first structure is I have also draw the receptor or the sensory organ. Here's the sensory organ is also the skin. Yes, the sensory organ is also happens. The receptor organ is also first structure is the skin. Again, with the second structure is the sensory or efferent nerve. Here, the sensory or efferent nerve is also happens. The sensory or the efferent. Here's two words. First word is the efferent, and second is the efferent. First structure is the sensory nerve, and the another structure is the efferent nerve. And interneurons. Here's the interneurons, the long structure. Basically, it's also happens the central canal. First, second is the gray matter, and third is the white matter. The full structure is the again. I also explain the interneurons. Here's the interneurons. First, central canal. Second is the gray matter, and third is the white matter. It's also the interneurons. Long structure. And the fourth structure is the motor. Here's this structure is the motor. I have also identified this structure is the motor. And the fifth structure is the effector organ. Here's this structure is the voluntary muscles or the effector organ. Is it clear? Again, I also explained first structure is the receptor. It's also the skin is the receptor organ. Second structure is the sensory or efferent nerve. This structure is the sensory or efferent nerve. Third is the interneurons. Basically, there are three types or three categories. One is the central canal. Second is the gray matter, and third is the white matter. It's also the interneurons. And fourth, this structure is the when it's also the reverse. This structure, the another figure is the motor, and last and also the last, basically they are also the voluntary muscles. Voluntary muscles, my dear students, have you any idea? In the class 7, we have also explained the involuntary muscles, cardiac muscles, and voluntary muscles. Yes, this structure is also another is the muscles I have just drawn. It is also the voluntary muscles or the effector organ. Now, explanation. How can it also happen, the reflex action? Immediately after the pin pricks the skin of our hand, this structure first one is the when the skin or the pin pricks the skin of our hand, the sensory organ, basically first the receptor perceives the stimuli of pain. This painful stimuli passes into the spinal cord through sensory spinal nerves. This structure is the spinal cord. The through is also the spinal nerves. Here's two nerves. First nerves is the sensory nerves, and second is the motor nerves. Again, Interneurons transmits the impulse from efferent neurons to efferent neurons. First structure is the efferent neurons, second is the efferent neurons. First is the efferent and second is the efferent neurons. It's also impulse or the electrical impulse. Again, the motor nerve carries the message from spinal cord to the muscles. Again, my dear students, again I also explain the motor nerve carries. This structure is the motor nerve carries and the spinal cord to the muscles. The effector organ shows response to the stimuli and consequently muscles contracts and we withdraw our hand from painful stimuli. Again, it is very important to release that figures 5.6 here. The 5.6 a reflex action of human body. Very important figure. Please everyone try to draw this figure. Again, it is very important to release that figures 5.6 is a greatly simplified picture of a reflex action. In a reflex action, first a sense organ is stimulated by a pin prick. Again, I also explain. Again, I also repeat. The skin and also the second structure is stimulated by a pin prick. This sensation travels from the sense organ to the spinal cord through the efferent or sensory nerve fiber. Here, this structure is the efferent, my dear students. This structure is the efferent or the sensory nerve. In response, the central nervous system sends back a message. Here's the sensory nervous system. In the previous class, I have also explained the central nervous system. Sends back a message through the efferent or the motor nerve fibers to the muscle of the organ and as a result the organ is the withdrawn. My dear students, here I have also explained today very important topics. This topic is the reflex action where it's happened, basically the spinal cord. In the spinal cord, here's basically 5 categories. First categories, again I explain, first category is the receptor or the skin, sensory organ. Second is the sensory nerve and also the efferent organ. Third is the interneurons. This structure is the interneurons. And fourth is the motor and finally the voluntary muscles or the effector or the effector organ. I hope, my dear students, we have also tried again and again to understand these topics. Goodbye, my dear students.